we don't hinge our happiness and fulfillment in life on our external surroundings or other people. One incredibly important aspect as far as being a planner is we have to surrender to the idea that long to-do lists, we don't get through our to-do lists every day.
A former perfectionist who struggled with setting boundaries, Jeanine spent years of her life in a toxic relationship where she felt unhappy, unfulfilled, and undervalued. Amidst a battle with cancer, Jeanine experienced a transformational mindset shift that unlocked her untapped potential. This shift unleashed the start of new thoughts and beliefs that grew into courage and confidence to take massive action and rebuild a new life for herself. Jeanine's personal transformation ignited her passion to help others unlock their untapped potential. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. You know the fee for the Be Better broadcast. When you take any piece of advice or insight away during this conversation with Jeanine, please share the show with just one person who could use it as well. Jeanine, I'm excited to talk with you today. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited as well.
So let me ask you this, just because that introduction, there's a lot there, and I want to dive into that because you've got quite the story and a lot that you've overcome and so much that you've become.
Right.
What does it mean when you say take ownership of your life? What does that mean to you?
What it means to me is that we don't hinge our happiness and fulfillment in life on our external surroundings or other people. We truly recognize that we have choices and we own the ability to own our happiness. And if we aren't in a place that brings us fulfillment, joy, satisfaction, we have the choice to take a step in another direction.
Did you realize those things before or after the difficult chapters of your life? Or is that something you learned when you were in the trenches moving through life?
Yeah, in the trenches. And I always say, I got to a pretty low place. And because I have experience with that, I like my clients to know that they don't have to wait until they are in a really low place. So yes, it was right after my cancer diagnosis, and I was living in that really not healthy relationship. And I just had this moment of clarity with myself. I just totally recognized and owned the fact that I was hinging my happiness on the idea that someone else was going to change, instead of owning the ability to create happiness within myself. So it was just that moment that I realized if I didn't change something in my life, I would continue to feel exactly as I did in that moment. And I didn't know what that change was going to look like, but I knew I didn't want to continue to feel that way. So that was my personal clarity moment of, okay, if I continue to stay in the same place and do the same things, I'm going to continue to feel the same way, really.
Wow. So you received that cancer diagnosis while you were in this unhealthy relationship at the time.
Yeah.
And you're super young. So was this like recent history? Like when did this happen?
This was a while ago. This was 2009. And a lot's happened since then. I think in that moment, like I said, I had no idea all the numerous changes I was going to make in my life. And I wasn't sitting there saying, I'm going to make a total life transformation. It just really started with the simple thought of recognizing that it can't continue to be this way. My story cannot continue this way. And I think I was just really in a low place because, cancer diagnosis can be scary and really the unknown can be unsettling. And so that added a lot of fuel to kind of my internal fire at the moment. So it just started with that acknowledgement that I was going to need to find my way out of that relationship. But but I knew that my first focus had to be on getting healthy and getting well, whatever that looked
Yes.
like.
Yes. Well, first, I commend you for making it through that chapter of your life, because I've never been diagnosed with cancer. I've never been in a toxic relationship. So the fact that both of those things were happening concurrently for you at especially an even younger chapter of your life before you even
Mm-hmm.
had like a lot of real life experience, I
Mm-hmm.
can imagine being in that situation. And it's especially in that situation, I can imagine it either goes one or two ways. You sit in that situation and stay there, or
Right.
like what you said, you have that thought of something needs to change. But I can't imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, that that thought came out of nowhere. Was that thought inspired by someone, something? Like, at what point during this chapter, because I can only imagine how difficult it was, did
Sure.
this intuition or feeling come about that you said to yourself, I need to make a change now?
Right, right. Well, it was recently after I was diagnosed, and I think I just want to take a step back and say the following: when you're in a toxic relationship, I mean, we don't often walk into toxic relationships and identify that they are such in the beginning. It's a progression. It happens over time, and and over time, we suddenly, by compensating and uh, dismissing bad behavior and just continuing to deal with it, if you will, we wear ourselves down more and more. We're humans. We really are not designed to operate from that place of ongoing, continual, chronic stress
Yeah.
week after week, month after month, year after year. So I was already in that place. And so very shortly after the cancer diagnosis, I was trying to process that, as I had always prided myself on being a super fit and healthy person. I was a total gym junkie from the age of 18. So I was kind of shocked. And in addition to processing that, I was again finding myself on the receiving end of some bad behavior, and I was just I think it was a melting pot combination of anger, frustration, fear, and just feeling hopeless, and that all swirling around. And then I just had that moment, and I said, "Wait a second, this isn't going to change. I'm going to have to make the change. I'm
Hmm.
going to have to get out of this situation, whatever that looks like, but I need to get healthy first." Yeah.
Wow. So you say I need to get healthy first.
Hmm.
Healthy first means cancer free at that stage.
Sure. And I didn't have exact clarity, obviously, on what procedures or surgeries or things lied ahead. I really didn't, but I was super determined that I was going to give it my all.
Yeah.
I just was not going to kind of accept that this was just kind of the path I was going to be on forever. So yeah, I was pretty determined that I would do whatever I had to do to get healthy.
Wow. And you're already this fit person going to the gym, obsessed with health and fitness. I can only
Totally.
imagine the shock that receiving that diagnosis felt like.
Yeah. Right.
So how do you traverse that time? Like when you receive that diagnosis, you're thinking, I can imagine you're thinking, I'm healthy, I'm fit. Why me? Why this young
Hmm.
person? Why now? Like, how do you traverse that that mental territory at that stage in your life? How do you know what decisions to make, what choices to make?
Well, I'll be really honest. I remember saying at that moment, literally when I got the phone call, what did I do to deserve this? So somehow it was my fault. That's just the lens that I saw it through. That's kind of how powerful our mindset is it just really affects the lens through which you see everything happening in your life. And so that was my first thought. What did I do to deserve this? Pretty consistent with the kind of perfectionist that I was, that, everything had to be perfect and in order. So, how do I traverse that? How did I? Um, I learned very quickly that I needed to focus on one day at a time.
Hmm.
Looking at the whole picture, looking at the whole overview, super overwhelming, especially when you don't have clarity about everything that needs to happen. You're just aware of a situation. And, and I think often many of us find ourselves overwhelmed when we're facing a big project or chapter in our life, and we take that bird's eye view, right? So, what I made a point of doing was I committed to just living life day by day. And that was hard for me because I was a chronic planner, you know? So I had to kind of set that version of myself on the back burner and just surrender to the living day by day. Another thing that I decided I was absolutely going to use for my benefit and to help address my stress and anxiety level was exercise. I mean, I was already committed to it. Exercise is a wonderful tool. I always say you get so much more out of exercise than just exercise. And for me, it was my, you know, time where I was investing in myself, and it really helped me manage feelings and emotions that were there for the journey.
So let's talk about that, because when we talk about the idea of taking ownership of your life, some
Mhm.
people who may not be so structured that they have a plan for their entire day might be thinking, I need more structure. I need to better plan. I need to better look ahead, create goals, whatever it may be.
Mhm.
You just diagnosed yourself as, or the past version of you as, a
Mhm.
chronic planner. So
Mhm.
I'm going to ask you several questions, and I'll frame it now. I'm going to ask you, what did that mean to be a chronic planner, and what did it transition into your days looking like when you decided to not be that anymore?
Right. I love that. So if you're a chronic planner, you can really relate to to-do lists, long to-do lists, um, which I may or may not still, of course, I still have some to-do lists. But one incredibly important aspect as far as being a planner is we have to surrender to the idea that long to-do lists, those we don't get through our to-do lists every day. We have to prioritize, right? So we have the to-do list of things that we'd like to get done, projects or things to complete. But it's important to hone on maybe what the top two or three priorities are for the day. And I'll tell you, not only do I engage in that mindset now, but I utilize that back when I was dealing with my cancer journey, because when you enter that place of overwhelm, literally, physically, and emotionally, and then suddenly your schedule has doctor's appointments and you need to spend time on the phone and information gather, so that's more kind of to-dos added to your to-do list. You have to prioritize and you have to identify the things that matter most. It
Mm,
is, being productive and being a planner doesn't mean running yourself into the ground and, just going, in the spirit of trying to get everything done. We have to surrender for our health and wellness to focusing on what we can do in the day, what is our top priority, and really focus on that. When we operate from the place of feeling like we can control everything and we can control the universe and control everything that happens in our day, we're setting ourselves up to be very disappointed. Because all we can do is really make empowered choices and do our best, but to think that we can control every aspect of our day is in fact not true. And so I just was able to take inventory very quickly of what mattered most. And so in that moment I thought, what's going to matter most is my physical health
mhm.
and my mental mindset health. So I identified, all right, I'm going to, whatever it takes, I'm going to continue to be active. And, I had to be flexible we have to be flexible in our methods. Being active through my cancer journey did not necessarily look like going to the gym and lifting heavy weights, every single day like I was. When I was going through radiation, I couldn't be around people. So I instead went walking, took solo walks, and took some weights outside and stayed away from everyone.
Yeah.
So we have to be flexible in our methods, for sure. But I think prioritizing and surrendering to, we can't just get everything done. It's more about what could we do today.
Yeah. It's almost a form of giving yourself grace to not expect yourself to get all these 20 things done on the list. And then if you
Mm-hmm.
don't do the last 5 things on the list, you beat yourself up and you're thinking of yourself as failing the day.
Right.
I follow someone named Andy Frisella, who I talk
Mm-hmm.
about a lot on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And he has this method that he talks about called the power list,
Mm-hmm.
where every day you write down the top 3 to 5 things max that you'll
Right.
prioritize and complete. And by completing these 5 things and putting a W next to each one as you complete them, he recommends having a physical workbook to do this. As you do that, you win the day, right? And you can put a big check mark through the day at the end of it. But if you don't complete those priorities, then he puts a big L through the page for you. You've lost the day, right?
Sure.
So
Sure.
definitely a
Sure.
bit of grit there when it comes to that.
Right.
I've also read, and I'm sure you've heard of this too, The One Thing by Gary
Yes.
Keller,
Yeah, it's a
where
great book.
it's very similar to what you're talking about here, which I love. It's the idea of, rather than focus on these 20 different things, what is the one thing that you can focus on today, whether it be in your health, your business, whatever
Mm-hmm.
it is, that by doing this one thing, it will make all of the other things either easier to complete or unnecessary to complete.
Right.
So I'm curious today, because now you have your business and now you work with other people on making empowered choices in their life and their
Mm-hmm.
business. Like, how do you go about prioritizing your day now? Like, how do you decide what's most important? Like, do you have a specific system that you use that you share with your clients? Like, can you
Sure.
give us a taste of that?
As far as prioritizing kind of my to-dos and it's a system. So I am a little old school in the sense that I do have my to-do list. I do actually like to operate from a weekly to-do list.
Hmm.
That has actually worked better for me. And here's the thing. I think with strategies that when we hear an idea or a strategy, we need to not employ all or nothing thinking. We need to not say, oh, that would never work for me, or yes, I'll do exactly that. We need to look at a concept or an idea and ask ourselves, how could I fit this into my reality? And so for me, I discovered a while ago that weekly to-do lists, and I plan my week out as opposed to the day by day, and that works best for me. And I actually prioritize, my top 5 most important things that have to happen within that week, and I hold myself accountable for professional, for fitness, for self care, and then for quality time with my spouse. So how do I juggle all that? I firmly employ the idea of setting boundaries,
Mm.
and scheduling fun and scheduling self-care. And when I say self-care, that is not the same for everyone. Sometimes we think of self-care, getting a manicure, taking a bubble bath or something like that. But quite frankly, I think self-care a lot of times is putting your phone on airplane mode for an hour during dinner so you can be present
Wow.
with your family.
And you
It's
schedule that.
100%, 100%. I schedule. I am incredibly intentional with my fun time and my self-care time because I am the kind of individual that operates best when I feel like I have a sense of balance in my life.
Hmm.
There's always more work to do. There's always more work to do. And I could just do just that. But I recognize that I operate most efficiently when I integrate some level of balance. And so in order for that to happen, I have to schedule the downtime, the fun stuff, in addition to the work stuff. It all is important, and it's all a priority, truly. So yes, I have very specific things. I actually disconnect. I put my phone on do not disturb. Sunday afternoons, I completely disconnect digitally. The laptop is closed. The phone's on do not disturb. I'm incredibly present with just being in the moment and enjoying life. And I find that, removing distractions also fosters creative thinking
Hmm.
and allows our mind to wander. I love structure, and most of the time I am very structured, but I also allow my brain and my mind to kind of have that disconnect time where I am not reading or watching videos or learning or scheduling or talking to people. I really kind of get real quiet. And I find that that really helps me plan and think and be creative. And that is all a part of, creating and planning the following week. So that's kind of my place that I operate from. I really encourage people that I work with to really, recognize things that are important to them as an individual when they are going to employ a strategy or an idea. So I fully recognize that my do not disturb phone mode on Sunday afternoons would be laughable for some people. I get it. But for me, that's what works. And
Yeah.
so, when we have that all or nothing thinking, like I can do that or I totally can't do it, sometimes we just need to ask ourselves, how could I integrate a change like that in my life? How could I make that work for me?
Yeah. Just keep trying different things, see what works. I can imagine the first time you did that, you
Yep.
were maybe thinking like, "Oh, do I really need to do this? Like, is this really necessary?" But then I'm sure you did it and you were like, "Wow, this was actually great for me to do. I'm glad I did this."
Yeah, absolutely. And you're exactly correct. It's always trial and error. I think we have that opportunity at the end of each day, right? Like we check in with ourselves and we say, what worked really well today?
Mhm.
And we acknowledge those. And that's a W, that's a win, like what worked really well. And then what didn't work so smoothly? What did I set out to do that just didn't happen? And instead of instead of immediately going to the place of self-guilting, how about we just go to the place of, not the emotional judgment, just looking at what didn't happen more objectively and just asking ourselves, what what got in the way of those things happening, and what could I try different tomorrow, like, and see if I get a different result. That's a
Yeah.
big part of change, is the willingness to try it a different way.
Well said. You're constantly measuring your progress, not just in a professional way, but a personal way, based on what you prioritize most. And the thing I love most about this, because I love your structure, by the way, and the way that you structure your life, because you place a heavy focus on self. And I think that's so important. And when I started prioritizing myself 7 years ago when I was 21, that's when my life changed. Everything
Mhm,
changed when I started. The first thing I focused on was health, just like you.
mhm.
And within 6 months, I lost 60 pounds. I was able to work on my mindset. I started asking myself
Amazing.
different questions. Like everything changed once I started focusing on that one thing. And I think that when we are facing these challenges, it can seem daunting, the road ahead.
Mhm.
But it's reassuring that by focusing on just one thing, we can make massive progress in all the other areas at the same time.
Absolutely. I always say, one small step in the right direction can be the biggest step of our life. And that sounds like such a cliche, but it's so true. We don't, there's this misconception, I think, sometimes that we don't make massive life change until we have like all the tools and like tons of confidence and we're just like, yeah, I'm ready, let's do it. No, massive life change starts with a decision. It starts with a willingness to take one step forward, to do one thing different. And, regardless of how massive our goals are, and I always say goals are important because goals are essentially, like the destination point that we set in our navigation system, if you will. But um, in order to get to those goals, we have to follow all the directions and make all the turns, and we have to look at our daily habits, our daily choices. What are we engaging in? So, you mentioned your weight loss. That didn't happen overnight. It happened by you changing some daily behaviors and repeating that day in and day out and being consistent. So
Yeah.
that's one of the most important things I think for change in our life is to, make sure that our daily choices are in alignment with what it is we say that we want. And if those daily choices and habits are not in alignment with what we say that we want, then we need to have a check-in with ourselves, and maybe, fine tune the lens that we're looking through, and get to the bottom of maybe why we're engaging in behavior that isn't in alignment with what we say that we want, maybe how we're potentially self-sabotaging our success.
Yeah. Fine tuning that lens, it's interesting. You mentioned you check in with yourself and also fine tune that lens, because by checking in with yourself and asking yourself those daily questions,
Mhm.
you are in a sense fine tuning that lens at the same time, right? You are
Right.
asking yourself, what, like you said, what went well for me today? What am I grateful for today? And what happened today that maybe I'll do differently next time? Like, I have those check-ins with myself right before I go to bed every night, and that's what works for me. I'll be
Right.
laying, I actually fall asleep asking myself those questions. And it doesn't happen every night, but it definitely happens 5 out of 7 nights every single week. And I find that the next morning I wake up and it's time for me to tackle the next day and take that next step forward. But I love how you said it didn't happen overnight. It happens when you make a decision, because you're absolutely right. I remember, and you like unlocked this memory when you explained that. I remember sitting on the couch in our old apartment
Mm.
after I made the decision, maybe a week into me starting to work out. It was only 3 times a week I'd go and work out with my mentor, who invited me to the gym with him. And I remember sitting on the couch in my apartment eating raspberries, which I never ate. We went shopping. We bought all this different food. We
Those
bought
are my favorite, by the way.
I love raspberries. Yeah, I love fruit in general. But I used to eat ice cream like literally probably 4 or 5 nights a week, like a pint of ice cream.
Mhm.
And I substituted that for Halo Top ice cream back in the day.
Mhm.
And that was like when it was brand new on the market, and I started eating that instead. And then I weaned it down to like 3 a week. And I remember I was still a big dude. I would look in the mirror. I was physically still the bigger person, but
Mhm.
in my mind, I felt so much better about myself because I
Awesome.
had made that decision. And in a sense, by making that decision, I had morphed my identity into someone new.
Absolutely. That's so powerful, and it's so true. That's how change starts. Um, I will say that my mindset and confidence coaching business, you know, organically grew from working in the health and fitness space as an entrepreneur for 9 years. For
Hmm.
9 years, you know, working with individuals that wanted to get in shape and lose weight, it was more than just the workouts and what they were eating. It was the negative self-talk. It was the what I like to call the hamster wheel mindset, where a lot of individuals get stuck. And this is something that I talk to my clients about a lot. It's an important point because so often when we experience a stumble in our progress or a bit of a roadblock, what our response is, I'll just try harder. And it's not necessarily about trying harder. If we are trying and doing the same exact things. We're staying on a hamster wheel, just following the same exact path, and we're not getting where we want to go. We have to be willing to ask ourselves, it's not necessarily about just trying harder, running faster in the same path. It's, what should I try different? In order to get those different results, I need to have the willingness to try something different. And that's a really powerful place. And that's where a lot of people get stuck. That black and white thinking that, we just don't have the results that we want right now. So we just have to try harder. And it might actually be, let me shift and look at what I'm doing on the daily. Maybe I need to change that. So, obviously any big change takes work and consistency, but we have to be open to tweaking and growing and changing that plan, because that is life. That's how we grow and evolve, is the willingness to be committed to a practice, but also the willingness to have a growth mindset about the practice, and to recognize that we might meet plateaus or stumbling blocks that we didn't necessarily anticipate. And we might need to open our mindset in order to tackle that. So really just, getting off that hamster wheel and making different choices, as opposed to just trying harder, doing the same thing.
So let me ask you about that, because you've mentioned a couple times now the idea of it's important to have goals because it sets that internal GPS, talking about prioritizing what's most important based on what you want. The whole underlying theme there is knowing what you want, right? And your career has changed over the past decade. You do what you do now, but you came from the health space beforehand. So I'm curious, when it comes to your own life, how do you decide what you want next? Like, how do you set that internal GPS, and how has it led you to what you do now as a coach?
Great question. I remember when I entered the entrepreneurial space in health and fitness, years ago, I remember saying to myself, with the understanding that I personally loved health and fitness, and I knew I was going to work with individuals that didn't. And I said to myself, I think I'm going to really learn some interesting things from the people I'm going to work with. And I don't know what I don't know yet. And just being open to organic learning and growth from working with all different populations of people. Earlier in my career, I worked with all different populations, and then I really kind of narrowed my niche. But so I think how do I know kind of what direction and where I'm going to grow? A big part of what I do is fueled by my passion to help people. Being a coach, I firmly believe that the population that I serve has the tools to make life change. They just need guidance and direction. And so a big part of what I do and my personal growth stems from the platform of how can I continue and grow to best serve my clients, to really be best equipped to help them in their struggles and challenges. And so for me, it's been a very organic process. I mean, I love personal development, and, I'm a bit of a bookworm, and I'm always learning and growing and desiring, evolution. I am someone who, although I'm incredibly thankful for everything that I have in my life, and I have a lot of gratitude, I do continually want to grow and evolve.
Yes.
So that's just kind of who I am as a person. So I think I'm always, looking into learning and expanding my knowledge and education so I can better serve people. But really the main nucleus of this all is the question that I constantly ask myself, and that is, how can I better serve
Wow.
my clients? Because I'm just so incredibly passionate about helping people change their lives. Um, I'm so grateful where my life is today. I fully recognize if I didn't have that moment with myself and take ownership and kind of enter into uncharted territory, I don't know where I would be right now. I think really unhappy. I don't even want to think about it actually, but I just, it's big change and transforming our lives can be massive. We get one shot at this, right?
Yeah.
We get one life. So that is really my fuel. That's really what propels me forward is, uh, being the best version of myself. So the people around me, and that includes my clients and the population I serve, get that.
Yes, I love that. I think it's beautiful that you're doing exactly what you're meant to be doing and that you continue to grow to better serve your clients. So for the person who you work with who says, Jeanine, I just don't know what I want. Let's say they don't have clients. Let's say they're not in sales. They don't, and a lot of people listening right now are in sales. They are entrepreneurs, business owners. So that will be relevant for them. But let's say we've got the blue collar man or woman listening, and they're
Mhm.
saying, I just, what questions should I ask in order to determine what my next step should be? You mentioned that you are innately a growth focused person. And I
Mhm.
relate to that because it's the same thing for me. And a lot of people listening are too. Do you believe that we're all innately growth focused? And for that person who isn't working with clients, is there a different question or a change to the question that you asked that would fit that individual?
Sure. That's a great question. You know, there there are different stages of readiness to change. So I recognize that. Uh, do we all have the capacity to change? Yes, I believe we have the capacity. Are we all ready today to start making some steps in the direction of change? That depends.
Hmm.
So, people move at different paces. What could be a good question to start with for individuals is, and that's my area of expertise, is I really create the powerful questions for thought-provoking
Yeah.
conversations with my clients. But something that we predominantly start with is, let's start talking about areas of your life that you maybe feel stagnant, maybe less than excited about, maybe concern. Oftentimes individuals maybe haven't identified what needs to change or what should change in their life for them,
Hmm.
but they can identify how they feel.
Yeah.
They often can identify feelings. So, we might bring up the topic of their significant other or their job. Maybe someone is employed and immediately we start talking about work and the response changes. So, we can start talking about areas of individuals' lives where there's very strong feelings and reaction. And then what we do is we kind of dig a little deeper and try and understand the root cause of maybe some of these feelings and reactions and emotions, and get clarity on areas of individuals' lives that maybe they would like to see something different, and then what that could look like. It's really interesting. I don't tell my clients what to do.
Hmm.
I don't tell them what to do. I help support and spark thought-provoking dialogue, so they can organically pull out their tools, which they are equipped with, I firmly believe, and
Yeah.
use those tools. But sometimes that takes a little digging with some deeper level questions to not only identify emotions and feelings that they have, but what's at the root cause of those emotions.
Wow.
And if this scenario was different, how do you think it would affect those emotions that you have, you know? And I'm a big believer, whether we're talking mindset, confidence, nutrition, fitness, I'm a big believer getting to the root cause, because a lot of times our feelings and behaviors are a result of a root cause that we are simply ignoring, not treating, not spending time on. And that's how we solve problems, I believe.
Wow. Excellent explanation of that. I love how you went deep into the root cause, which is how you feel about a particular thing. Like back then, I wouldn't have been able to say, "Oh, I feel terribly about my body." I did, but I wasn't conscious to that
Mm-hmm.
until I
Mm-hmm.
met the individual who did help me make those changes, who said, "Brandon, I can tell you're unhappy. I can tell you're frustrated." And he did kind of tell me what to do back then, which I kind of needed as this young guy inside of this organization. He's like, "You got to start working on your body." And I was like, "Well, how could that help me professionally?" And he's like, "Trust me, start working on your body. You'll feel better." And I did. And you're right. Like, he asked me these tough questions and got down to the root cause, which was how I felt about it. Even
Right.
everyone listening, ask yourself, is there a specific area of your life where when you have a conversation about this area, whether it be finances even, or your health, or your career and the way it's going, is there a topic of dialogue that makes you uncomfortable, that you don't want to enter into with other people, so that they can't, so that maybe you don't have to talk about it, or so that they don't discover your state of this specific topic, or where you're at here? Is there an area like that for you? And if there is, then what would happen if you were able to make progress in that area? I've never met someone who made progress in an area that they were insecure in or uncomfortable about, that didn't feel amazing once they started making progress in that area, because it really shows you, wow, I can move forward here. And if I can move forward in this one area, I can make progress and move forward in any area that I put my attention and my focus on.
Mm-hmm. 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 That's, you know, I totally agree with that. And I would say the following, you know, it's so interesting. We often will even become defensive or not employ suggestions or help from those closest to us. I see that all the time. Friends, family members, spouses, individuals that maybe care about our wellness and our progress. We oftentimes can be very protective or defensive with those people. The really nice thing about working with a coach is, you know, I'm helping individuals in their life without necessarily being one of the players in their immediate family or social circle. And so it's a very safe place
Mm-hmm.
to have uncomfortable dialogue and know that they're not being judged in any capacity. And that they can, by knowing that, they can surrender more to the concept or idea of making change or doing things different. But it's very interesting. You know, individuals a lot of times, just to step back, and something that I mentioned earlier, you know, I can't stress enough, because I think one of the biggest challenges for people is, in general, it's overwhelm. We're unhappy, we're unfulfilled, we don't have clarity on why. Maybe there's a variety of things in our life that we identify that we want to do different or change. Um, and, you know, overwhelm happens when we take that bird's eye view, when we look at the whole scenario. There's a lot of different steps, and it can be so overwhelming that what we do is we do nothing.
Yeah.
We just kind of just stuff down the emotions, just don't want to deal with it. Maybe it'll go away. Of course, we know it doesn't. So, you know, so there is so much power in what we do on the daily. And, your story that you shared about fitness, so powerful. I remember when health and fitness for me, I think my first spark was, just maintaining my physique. It was
Mhm.
just all physique based. And now it's just such a mental thing.
Yeah.
My workout is such a mental thing. It's kind of how I, fill my tank and feel great and rev up my energy and improve my mood. So
Yeah.
a lot of benefits from that.
100% turn from the physical to the emotional. And it's okay
Absolutely.
if it starts physically and turns
Yeah.
into that later on. Very seldom does someone say, I want to feel better emotionally, so I'm going to go to the gym. Usually
Yeah.
it's, I want to look better. I want to look better naked. I want to feel good when I look at
Sure.
myself. Like,
Yeah.
and it's okay, like to have that desire. But as you stick with it, I think that many people find that changes.
There's so many other benefits. It's like you're going after that one benefit, and then you learn, perseverance and hard work and consistency, and you learn so much more from the
Yeah.
process, which is amazing.
Absolutely. And I agree 100% with what you said about coaching as being that safe space outside of the direct social circle that you're in, family that you're in.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to first commend you for your energy. You just have a very compassionate and safe energy about you, to where
Thank
this
you.
conversation, to this, we're not done yet, but this conversation, like, it's been very easy to have this conversation with you. And I can only imagine what it's like to have a one-on-one conversation with you where you're focused on helping me, right? And whoever it
Right.
is that you're coaching to make these changes. Because what we've talked about so far is very all-encompassing, but
Mm-hmm.
I can only imagine what it would look like if it was laser focused on a specific issue and or path forward. So let me ask you, I know that you are offering a complimentary 20-minute clarity call with
Mm-hmm.
those
Mm-hmm.
listening to this, which is amazing for those who haven't had a coach before and you're like, what does it look like to work with someone? Or if you have had a coach and you're like, this is someone I can vibe with. I'm enjoying this conversation. I'd like to actually go one-on-one with Jeanine. So
Right.
talk to me about, first, who do you like to work with, and what are the general, I don't want to say problems, but what are people generally coming to you who then become clients? What are they coming to you for?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I work with men and women. Most of my clients tend to be women. The kind of individual that tends to seek my support are overachievers, very high achieving individuals that are potentially go, 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 and really hard on themselves. Um, kind of like sort of the same person I used to be,
Yeah.
just chronic planner, perfectionists, individuals that have fear of failure. Um, so, the the clarity call, the reason that that's so important is because, first of all, it's important for individuals to feel like they are connecting with a coach that um, gets them, that they feel safe and comfortable to connect and talk and share with. It's also kind of important, very much like that feeling that I had when I started in the entrepreneurial fitness space. And I said, I don't know what I don't know in regards to connecting with people. Sometimes individuals really lack the clarity. Like I said, they know that they maybe feel unfulfilled. Maybe they know that they have a job that they don't love. Maybe they, why am I not kind of committing to this situation or this person, or what's holding me back? So something's on the radar, but they don't have clarity on what that next step forward would look like, or if that next step forward is maybe the step they should take, what's best for them. So, a clarity call is really just that. It's breaking down kind of some immediate surface level emotions and trying to find the real life areas and root causes that those emotions are heavily tied to, and then digging a little deeper. And also in the clarity call, I'm able to get a sense if individuals are ready to take a step forward. I believe that we can take a step forward at any point in our life. I believe it's a decision, but it does have to start with that decision. So if individuals are open and ready to make that decision, then heck yeah, let's take a step forward. But you know, it is choice based. Like I said, I don't tell my clients what to do. So you know, that's kind of where it would start and what it would potentially look like. And you know, of course, I always want to. I want to be a good match for the individuals seeking my service. I want them to feel that we mesh and we vibe and they feel safe to talk to me and to share with me so we can get down to business and start growing and evolving.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And that's what the clarity calls for, to see if you're a great fit for them and if they're a great fit for you. And I started working with a coach several years ago, specifically with business, and it's evolved now to working with a business coach and a fitness coach and a coach for the individual areas that I want to improve in. And once you start, guys, and I know a lot of people listening do work with a coach currently, but once you start working with someone who, like you said, provides that safe space, they're not attached to your daily circle, and they are a sounding board for you to help you make that next step forward and help you navigate that next step forward as well. It changes everything. And I endorse everything you're talking about, Jeanine, everything you do. And I'm really looking forward to see what you create moving forward. So let me ask you this before I ask where people can find you and reach you.
Yes.
What does the next chapter for Jeanine look like moving forward? What's on the horizon?
Yeah. I've certainly, you know, I currently work one-on-one with individuals, and I really like the focus of that space. But I would like to connect with more people. So I've certainly entertained a book idea, and just reaching out, being able to kind of reach out to more individuals in some sense of that. So, you know, something along those lines for sure.
I love that. Please add me to that pre-order list immediately, because
Absolutely.
I will be one of the first readers of that book. And just based on this, like, you've got a book just on what we talked about. And I know there's so much more just with your story alone. So that's going to be amazing. I'm really excited for that. I'm excited to see what that turns into. Where is the best place for people to follow you, to see what you're up to, and also to get these little tidbits of
Yes. Instagram and Facebook. In fact, starting Monday on Instagram, we're doing Mindset Mondays on stories. So you can find me there. But always, you know, connect via DM, any connection. I'm open to responding to DMs, and also, of course, my website, JeanineGrayson.com, and my contact page there. They can connect with me there. But yeah, I'm available, and I'm in this to help individuals. So
I can tell.
Super excited. Yeah.
You heard it, guys. JeanineGrayson.com. Links are in the description. The Instagram's down there. The Facebook's down there. Go check it out if you're listening. And Jeanine, I just want to thank you for sharing your story, sharing practical advice and tips. And thank you for sharing this space with me today.
Thank you for having me. I had a great chat with you.
Right back at you. Thank you. We have covered a lot when it comes to how to take ownership of your life. And we talked about being a perfectionist, what it looks like to be a perfectionist, structuring your day in a way where you're prioritizing what's most important for you. But we also covered a lot about how to discover what's most important to you, how to know what to focus on next. What is that one area of your life where, when starting conversation or even thinking about it, maybe creates anxiety, it creates a tension, it creates a discomfort. If you feel that about any specific area, that might be the next best area to focus on in your day. And don't throw 20 different things on the to-do list for it. Maybe just throw one thing on the to-do list and prioritize it, and just notice the progress you make and the changes that you create as you move through that journey. I really enjoyed this conversation with Jeanine. Links are in the description to connect with her and also to check out her website. She's offering a complimentary 20-minute clarity call to see if you guys are a fit based on what you're looking to achieve and how she can help you. So links are in the description for all those things. If you did take something away from this conversation like I did, then please share this show with just one other person. You're the reason the Be Better broadcast has grown the way it has over the past 2 years, because you're sharing the show with a friend, and you are the best part of the Be Better team. Thanks so much for watching and listening. And until we talk again next time, continue to be better.